Like the day that I had to dig it out, I didn't feel like it. I just didn't feel like it. So now I looked at this pile of snow that I don't feel like digging out, but there was this gap between where I was in the process and where I wanted to go. And to get to where I wanted to go, I was going to have to do some work I didn't feel like doing, but that was the only way to get to the destination. And the destination was, I'm going to sleep in this freaking thing because I've done this too many times and not accomplished the goal. And I'm sick of it. And that was a turning point. This was the year that I finally got sick of it enough where I'm like, I'm not going to stop halfway through. I've done that plenty of times. I've done it enough times. I'm not stopping halfway through. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grit Meets Growth podcast, where we bring you inspiration and insights focused on getting uncomfortable, making things happen, and creating a magnetic life. If you enjoy the messages you're hearing here, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of the podcast. With that, let's get after it. Once the snow would start to melt, I realized my opportunity to make a Quincy in the backyard was gone. Like it wasn't going to come back. And so I would make this giant pile of snow in the backyard. I'm going to make a Quincy. I'm going to sleep outside.
All right. Hold on. Let's back up the story. What's a Quincy?
So the Quincy is it's a mound of snow. It's like, I'm going to call it like a snow shelter or an igloo, right? And so it's a mound of snow. You make a giant mound of snow. You let it sit for 5 or 6 hours. The snow starts to settle in on itself. Then you hollow out the inside and like an igloo, hollow it out, you make a shelter, and then you can sleep in it. So when I was a kid in Boy Scouts, we would go winter camping and we would make Quincies. And you'd get 4 or 5 guys and you'd make this giant pile of snow and then you'd all dig it out together. And you could get, in a big one, you could probably sleep 4 guys. And you'd be like nestled in there like sardines. You were in there pretty tight, but you didn't care because it was 10 degrees outside. So 5 years ago, I got this wild hair that I was going to make a Quincy. Like I hadn't been winter camping in a long time. I'm going to make a Quincy in the backyard. I shovel this giant pile of snow out on the patio. It's the perfect spot for it. It's huge. And then it sits there the rest of the year. And now I have a giant pile of snow that never melts. Like it's almost June and this thing's still melting because it's too big, right? And I never did anything with it. So last 5 years, I've probably done that 3 times. This year, when I was in Nepal, I was having a conversation with one of my buddies and he was like, hey, we should go winter camping. So him and I had gone back and forth. We're going to go winter camping. We had conversations about it. I got in my head that I was going to go winter camping. And when we got back 2 weeks later, he found out he had cancer. And so he is now on the chemo path, battling cancer. He's not going winter camping this year. So I made the giant pile in the backyard and I dug it out and sent him a picture of it. And I said, hey, you're not gonna be able to do it this year, but I'm prepping for next year. And this is the test drive on the Quincy. You're going to be out here next year. We're going to do this together.
Is he coming over to hang out in it at all this year?
I don't know if he's going to. I'm picking him up from his therapy on Friday. So that'll be a topic of conversation for sure. So
well, if you've got it now and you've gone through the effort, you might as well utilize it.
Yeah. I want to sleep in it a couple of times. I slept in it on Monday. And when I got out of it, the kids were like, oh, did you sleep good? Was it the best night's sleep you ever had? And I'm like, no, I didn't make it because it was a good night's sleep. Like if I wanted a good night's sleep, I would have stayed in bed.
You got it big enough that you can sit up in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I took a candle. Once I had it all dug out, I put a candle inside, let it heat up for a while, let it kind of glaze the inside. And it's big enough.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Who gave me that idea? Oh, let me ask. Chris Cathers gave me the idea to put the candle in there. Then I had about 3 people after me go, hey, did you remember to put the candle in there? And I would have forgot to put the candle in there. So
good times.
You knew a lot about Quincy's when you found out I was doing this. Like if you,
we used to make them all the time when I was a kid. I had a buddy who, their house, the way that they had their driveway plowed in the winter created this massive bank. And we would make a Quincy in there every year. And we could it would be so big we could fit comfortably 10 people in there.
Oh, dang.
As kids. It was gigantic. And yeah. And then subsequently, I've got a friend that makes one every year as well. And I've listened to his stories, and, he gets the snow blower out and blows snow in the backyard. And, sometimes you got to be a little, sometimes we don't have enough snow to make that pile very easily, right? It takes some effort. Fortunately, this year, you're fortunate if you had plenty of snow to play around with.
It was just a ton. It was a ton. And it was one of those.
It's really good snow because it's been frozen. It's been, it's been thawed. It's kind of really packy. There was a period of time where it was pretty good and packy, and, get her settled in. It's going to be a good, solid resource for you for the entire winter.
Oh yeah. It'll be there for a while. The kids and Christina were afraid it was going to fall in on me over the course of the night. So they would look out their window to make sure I was still alive. But I had convinced them, tried to, that it wasn't going to fall in. It was pretty well built. So it was a good thing to build. It was a good thing to do. It felt good not to kick that can down the road anymore, because I just got sick of living every spring when the thaw would come. I got sick of the regret that came along with staring at this pile of snow that never turned into anything. And I think that's just it's a metaphor for about 10 different things in my life that up until recently I wrestled with regret on, because I had an idea and I didn't execute on it.
So what do you think drove you to make that change?
I think one of the things was my buddy Jeff going through what he's going through. Definitely had something to do with it, right? It was definitely part of the reason that this was the year that I broke down the barrier and did it. But I think the other piece of it was, you and I have been having conversations like this for almost a year and a half now, that we've been engaged in conversations about getting uncomfortable and not making excuses and doing hard things. And if you're going to have conversations like that consistently over a year and a half, eventually it's going to sink in. And eventually it's going to become something that you move from talking about to actually doing. And I think that was part of it. I think it was, when I looked at it this year, I saw it through a different lens. I saw it through the lens of, this is going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, it's not hard. Let's be real. There's people who go through a lot harder things than building a Quincy in their backyard, but it's going to take some work. It's going to be a little uncomfortable to sleep in it. And at the end of it, I knew it was going to feel good, and I was going to be proud of myself for doing it. And so it was just that consistent pattern of conversation that we've been having, surrounding myself with people who have conversations like that and think like that, put me in a position where there really wasn't another option. It was go or no.
Sure. So take me through the thought process of that. How did you work through that in your own head? And deal, not only that, but deal with the naysayers and the people that, are like, you're not going to do that. You're really going to do that? Why would you do that? Right? There's going to be those kind of conversations that popped up, I'm sure.
100%. And it was, so here's the interesting part about that. The naysayers, if I'm going to be really honest, were probably people who were close to me, who, I had conversations about it with my kids, and they're like, you're going to do what? And there weren't a lot of people saying, yeah, you should go do that. Christina probably teeter-tottered a little bit on both sides, from the naysayer, are you sure you want to do that, to she actually did come over to the other side and get excited about it. But it was one of those things, if you talked about it, you could tell people were, okay, that's a little bit nutty that you're doing that. I don't think I would do it. Go ahead if that's what you really want to do. And I had to really look at it and go, well, yeah, it is actually what I want to do. Regardless of what anybody else is going to say about it, I want to do it. And there were moments in there. So you make this giant pile of snow in your backyard, and then the next day you have the conversation with yourself. All right, now you need to get out there and dig it out. And I didn't want to. The day that I had to dig it out, I didn't feel like it. I just didn't feel like it. So now I looked at this pile of snow that I don't feel like digging out, but there was this gap between where I was in the process and where I wanted to go. And to get to where I wanted to go, I was going to have to do some work I didn't feel like doing, but that was the only way to get to the destination. And the destination was, I'm going to sleep in this freaking thing because I've done this too many times and not accomplished the goal. And I'm sick of it. And that was a turning point. This was the year that I finally got sick of it enough where I'm like, I'm not going to stop halfway through. I've done that plenty of times. I've done it enough times. I'm not stopping halfway through. And that was the catalyst. It pissed me off, to be honest. All those years looking back on, I got close or I got started and I didn't do anything. The regret finally reached the boiling point where I got angry about it. And I'm like, no, you're better than that. Like, go finish your friggin' Quincy. Go sleep in it. Go do what you said you were going to do. So that's the backstory on it. I mean, and it was, like I said, it wasn't loads of fun. It was fun in spots, but it wasn't all fun.
Why not?
Was it always fun when you guys made Quincy's as kids?
Hell yeah. No, I wasn't doing it alone either. We had a group of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had a heck of a lot of fun once we got them dug out. Until the warm weather came and collapsed them, you know. And unfortunately, growing up in Michigan, that happened often, right? There's a freeze thaw pattern that happens in Michigan because of the Great Lakes that we don't get here in Minnesota.
But I think what you just said, though, is important not to lose. And take this out of the context of the Quincy. Like, screw the Quincy, right? Apply this to anything in your life that you've ever started and not finished. When you talk about that freeze thaw period, you have a limited window of time to do this. That's the other thing that I was thinking about with this Quincy. I've tried to do this before with crappy snow that wasn't made for building Quincy's. I've done it before when it got super cold and you could barely work on it outside. And I've had it thaw faster than what I thought and not be able to finish it. Sometimes that window closes on you really quick. That's the same with anything in life. You have an opportunity to do something. It's not a forever opportunity most of the time. Like, you're excited about something, that window or that door is not going to stay open forever. Sometimes you got to charge through the door right now and not wait. And somebody said the other day, the most dangerous thing you can do is play it safe. And it's true. Sometimes you got to just go and you got to drop safe and you got to just move. And because you don't know how long the window or the door is going to be open.
Those comments that you just made drive me to a thought around being prepared, setting your standards, knowing how you are going to act and operate in certain situations. And what I mean by that is when those situations come up, you know how to react to it. You know how to act because you've already gone through the process of giving some thought to it, thinking about what you're going to do, generally speaking, right? So in this situation, right, as things present themselves and as this opportunity presented itself to you, going, yeah, all right, game on. It's time to pile the snow up. Guess what happens after I pile the snow up? Time to go out there and get her done. What happens after that? I'm going to enjoy whatever it happens to be, right? Use that kind of thought process for whatever comes in front of you. You know, I saw this sign the other day. I don't even remember where it was, but it said discipline equals freedom. And I was like, wow, that one statement says so much, right? We've talked about the fact that, you know, there is a difference between discipline and motivation. Motivation might be something to get you started, but it won't take you very far. Motivation will fizzle out. And when it fizzles out, what do you have to rely on in order to continue forward? If you're really committed to continuing forward, you have to have the discipline. Which brings me to the fact of that becomes freedom. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to rely upon motivation. I have discipline to carry me forward. That's freedom, right? That is freeing of thoughts, freeing of motion. I get to just because of discipline, I know I just have to do that. Like there aren't any excuses, right? The back of your shirt says no excuses.
It's my favorite shirt.
Mine too. Live a life of no excuses.
When I looked back on the last 5 years, that path, I'll just use the Quincy as an example, but it is clearly not the only thing in my life that I would apply this to. That last 5-year path was riddled with excuses. And on the backside of those excuses were regrets. Shoulda, woulda, couldas, where I had opportunities to do things different and I didn't. And to rewind for just a second to when you talked about kind of anticipating the path and how things are going to roll out, having failed at this 3 times, I knew what was going to happen after I made that giant pile of snow. The next day when I didn't feel like digging it out, I knew it was coming. I knew 100% that when it came time to dig that thing out, I wasn't going to want to. And the beauty of that was then I could apply the discipline to say, I know you don't want to, just get out there and do it. We got a list of things I don't want to do. And then I get to choose, am I going to do them or not? Based on, I don't want to, I don't feel like it. If you look at your goals or whatever you're trying to build, whether it's a Quincy in the backyard or a better relationship or a new career or whatever it is, when you look at your goals, if you're going to work on them when you feel like it, you are not going to achieve anything. You have to have the discipline to keep going when you don't feel like it. Part of that comes from your goal has to be inspiring enough that you go after it no matter what. And there's a difference between, same as there's a difference between discipline and motivation, there's a difference between being inspired to do something and motivated to do something. Inspired is I wake up in the morning ready to get after it. Motivated is I need a penalty or I need a reward or I need some kind of punishment to get me going. I want to be inspired to do things in life. I want to be excited when I wake up to do them. And that doesn't mean that every day you're going to be inspired and you're never going to have moments where you don't feel like it. You're going to have to tap into the discipline for sure. But they're all tied together.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd argue that inspiration only takes you so far, just as motivation, right? You're only going to be inspired so long. But being able to take that inspiration and operationalize it, right? And we've talked about that, right? I look at discipline is operationalizing your goals. It's operationalizing what you need to do to get to the goal that you want to achieve. If that's building a Quincy, whatever. And back to that conversation. So as you push through those thoughts, what were your lessons learned? What did you learn from that process?
I control how I show up. I can have that thought of, I don't feel like it, and I get to choose what I do with it. I can discipline myself enough to get through I don't feel like it and start digging out that Quincy. Pick up the shovel and go regardless. And that applies to everything. I don't feel like starting my work day today. I got a project in front of me. I don't feel like it. You know what the best thing to do is in that situation? Start. Just start. And that was another piece of the Quincy building was once I started, it got fun. It's like going to the gym. I don't feel like going to the gym. 99% of the time when you don't feel like going to the gym, once you walk into the gym and you hear the music and you see the weights and everything starts to click, you get started pretty fast. And sometimes those are your best workouts. You just got to start.
Most of the time.
Yeah, you just got to start.
Tell me a time that you've ever left the gym saying to yourself, God, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Never. So same thing with the Quincy. What did you feel when you got done with that?
I was stoked. So I got done digging it out and I couldn't wait to go down in the basement to where all the gear is pull the sleeping bag down out of the rafters, pull the ground pad out, inflate it. I was excited about what was coming next. And honestly, I knew the night's sleep wasn't going to be fantastic, but I was excited to just do something different and to accomplish it. And to be able to, on the backside of this, it's one thing to be able to tell a cool story. I made a Quincy and I slept in it in my backyard. That's great. I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for me because I needed to finish this and I needed to wrestle this mother down onto the ground and tackle it and be done with it versus kicking this can down the road for another 2 or 3 years and hoping that in another 2 or 3 years, I can still do it. That's the other thing. Time's ticking, you guys. Time is ticking. Those things you want to do that you keep kicking the can down the road on, I'm going to do it later. You're making a big Vegas bet on the fact that you get later. You don't know that. Do it now. Don't wait. I've spent a lot of time in my life waiting and saying, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next month. I'll do it tomorrow. That doesn't work, you guys. You're running a dangerous line when you do that. Do it now, or just choose not to do it at all. But if you really want it, quit waiting.
Experiences are top of the list this year for me and for my family. We've talked about it. My wife and I have had that conversation. It is really, it's about experiences this year. And when I say that, it doesn't have to be expensive, right? I mean, think about this Quincy. You built a Quincy with the snow that fell. That's an experience that you wouldn't have otherwise done, that you didn't wait around for. Oh, we'll do that next year. Take the experiences, man. And given everything that's going on in our surroundings and around us in the world today, we have to find something that we find peace in, that we find enjoyment from. Because it's very easy to go down this rabbit hole of depression, not feeling good. I guarantee you, you put discipline into your life in the things that you want to achieve, you're going to overcome that depression that you may be experiencing. You put experiences on the front burner and you're doing things that make you happy, that you get to spend time with the people that you enjoy being around, and you're laughing, right? We talked about that, right? Make an opportunity to laugh, have a good time. Life's too short, man. We're like you said, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So I better make the most of today. And when tomorrow comes and I put my feet on the ground, be thankful that I get another day.
You and I have talked in the past about the Misogi challenge that Jesse Itzler does, and it's based on a Japanese tradition where you go and you kind of purify yourself. But Itzler's version of the Misogi is basically once a year you do something that is so memorable that you'll remember it as something that marks your year for the rest of your life. The Quincy is maybe like a mini-Misogi for me, where I'm gonna remember the Quincy for a long time. But it ties back to what you were talking about with experiences. I didn't buy the Quincy. I didn't have to do anything financially to get it. I had the experience. And the experience is what I'm going to remember till the day I die. Like, I will not probably forget the Quincy anytime soon. That's worth its weight in gold. Being able to have that experience and then translate that to being able to have experiences with your family, with your kids. You can buy a lot of crap in this world. The experiences, when you invest in those, whether it's energy or money or heart, the experiences are awesome.
And guess what? You overcome your internal battle to do that. It moves you one step closer to living that life of no excuses. Turns you into a fighter. I think it was the Beastie Boys. You got to fight for your right. They said party, but fill in the blank.
There's something about training your fighter before you have to fight. There's something about training your fighter to do things that the world may not look at as a big fight, but that is a battle for you, right? Because eventually you're going to have something that comes into your path. My buddy who came back from Nepal with me, and now he's got cancer. He's got a fight in front of him. And fortunately, his head's in the right spot to fight. But that's part of it too, is even before you're in the fight, like I don't have any big fights today other than fighting with myself over battling to do this Quincy. But there will be a struggle that comes at me at some point. We all have them. This is partially me training myself to fight when I really need to fight. The two go hand in hand.
It does. And sometimes we don't even realize that, right? I had this situation when I went through my cancer battle. Previous to that, I had lost a fair amount of weight. I'd gotten in shape for what I thought was in shape at the time. It wasn't even, and I didn't even realize it, right? I have another friend who went through a massive weight loss, probably got in the best shape of his life since college, and then finds out he's diagnosed with cancer. And one of our mutual friends said, yeah, well, you know why that happened? That was just you getting ready and preparing for the fight of your life. And I look back on it from my perspective and go, hell yeah, that's what allowed me to recover as fast as I did. Right? When I came out of surgery, they said I was going to be in the hospital for 5 to 6 days. I was out in 3. It put me in that place without even realizing it. It put me in that place to be able to go through that fight and it not tear me absolutely apart, because I was strong enough to go through it. Somehow, miraculously, I went through that effort and that mental toughness training to go through that, so that when I did get that diagnosis and I did have surgery, like there was no excuses. Like, I'm kicking this thing's ass and I'm getting the hell out of this hospital as fast as I can.
I love you telling that story. And I remember you and your body double, Chris Cathers, number 2, having that same conversation. Both of you said the same thing. Like, you encounter the health scare, you encounter the battle, and you fight, and you get out of the hospital. And when they say 6 days, you say 3, and you just get after it. Like, and that all starts in your head. Like, you're going to have physical things that come at you, things that are hard and that are challenging. How you approach those mentally, your mindset when you step into those fires, that's going to say a lot about how long you spend in the hospital, how long you spend in the fight, how long it takes to get back on your feet again. And these aren't just to put this out there too. I get that these are not easy fights. I've got my buddy Jeff. I've got my aunt who's going through cancer right now. You have people that you know, like, take cancer as the example. These are hard fights. So when we're talking about this is not to diminish how hard the fight is. It's just to remind people, like, any fight that you're going through, it starts in your head.
Right. Because the alternative, what is the alternative? You just give in and let it win? Screw that, man. That kind of attitude sucks. Because you know what? There's so much more. We all have so much more to give and to offer. Don't let something like that. Don't let that battle, whatever it is that you're fighting, win.
That's where my head went with the Quincy. Screw that. Like it was the same thing. It was screw that. And so anybody listening to this, you have your own Quincy. You have your own battle that you're going through right now. You have that thing that you want to do, but you haven't done, you haven't started, or you started and you're afraid you're not going to finish it. Keep going, you guys. Whatever your deal is right now, keep going. Do not get to the other side of today or tomorrow or next week or next month with regret over things you should have done or had the opportunity to do. Whatever's in front of you that you can do today, do that.
And if you're struggling with something today, drop it in the comments. If you want some help, and how to approach something, drop it in the comments. Send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to offer some help.
Agreed. Go build your Quincy, you guys. Build your Quincy. Build it, dig it out, sleep in it, whatever that looks like for you. Go do that.
No excuses, baby.
No excuses.
Short and sweet this week.
It's a good episode.
Y'all know what to do. Get after it and make it a great day.
Have a great day, man. That wraps it up for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the Grit Meets Growth tribe. And thanks for growing along with us and being part of this journey together. If you know someone who needs to hear the conversation we had today, please share it. If you got something out of this conversation, please leave us a review. And finally, if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, just remember to subscribe. We're thankful for each and every one of you. And as my co-host and good friend Chris Cathers always says, make it a great day.